It's our week 3. We're making this a habit, guys. So I'm Carrie with Furnishings. I like to take old forgotten pieces of furniture and home decor, like this lovely mushroom style, rough life looking baby crib, and breathe new life into it. A lot of times pieces like that, the dresser that I posted earlier, have really good bones, but they have had a rough life. And so sometimes they need just somebody to believe in them again. And that's what I like to do. Also, I firmly believe that this process is contagious. I certainly caught the furniture refurb fever. And so I sell DIY paint, Paint Pixie paintbrushes, JRV stencils, and Iron Orchid design products for you to be able to do the same thing at home. So the first 2 items I'm going to start selling from Iron Orchid Designs are their transfers and their molds. I'm going to show you each of the ones that I'm selling pretty quickly. Classic pots. It's actually a whole sheet of little designs. This is called Wander, and it looks like hand-drawn flowers. Midnight Garden, and it's this big, beautiful bird. Entomology, etc. And it is butterflies. Sea Queen, it's called Botanist Journal, and it's just all kinds of wildflowers. Wildflower botanicals. 2 more. Wallflower. Obviously, there's ones that aren't flowers, but the flower ones are my favorite, so I started with these. Redoute for. This actually makes me low-key want to repaint that jewelry armoire. And clay. Molds, clay, and transfers in the shop once I go for my live demo on Saturday. Our topic today is the power of now. You know, we candidly discuss mortality here on my channel. That's something that, you know, I think depending on what kinds of things that you're exposed to over your life, you're more or less exposed to how fleeting time is. But really, I think the more I go through life, the more I realize how important every moment we are on this planet is. So the other thing that I've noticed is that sometimes we think, you know, who cares how we spend our Thursdays, right? Like, I work really hard Monday through Wednesday. Who cares how I spend my Thursdays, or whatever it is. I think we neglect sometimes the power of these individual moments. And even small things, even small habits, even something you might start doing 5 minutes a day can have tremendous impact on your life if you realize how important each moment is. My mom has a saying, because we'd say like, well, can we do that? Well, can they do that? Or how can they do that? Why can I do that and they can? And she'd say, you can do anything you want, as long as you are willing to accept the consequences of your actions. And that is where the magic is, I think. Every single thing you do has a consequence, and it might not be apparent right in that moment, but it does. So the fact that I drink water, I drank 68 ounces of water today, and it's the most that I've drank a day in a while. I'm challenging myself to drink more water. And it might not become immediately apparent that 68 ounces of water I drink today has a consequence, but it does. It's helping hydrate my body, it's helping remove toxins, etc. Now, if I decided to drink 68 ounces of soda today, or 68 ounces of beer, the consequences would be very different. And some would be more apparent than others more quickly. I'm using Petticoat Pink on this. It is a very soft, it looks white in the light. It's a very soft baby pink. I thought about making this a gender neutral crib, and then I found that wildflower transfer, and I decided this is going to be just the girliest crib of all time. Story time. I think that the most fun story I can tell about the power of a moment would be my husband and I's second date. I didn't tell him I was going to tell this story, but it's going to keep him very entertained. It's his favorite. As many of you know, my husband and I, when we first started dating, I should take off this white sweater while I'm painting. Speaking of consequences of action. When my husband and I first started dating, he lived in Virginia and I lived in Ohio. For the first date, he came to Ohio. We met in Ohio. We'd known each other for a long time. That's not the story. But he came to Ohio to take me on our first date. And then a couple weeks later, he was heading to Las Vegas to go to a friend of his wedding. And I was being my naturally charming self and kind of razzing him that he wasn't gonna have any fun if I didn't go. And I'll never, ever, ever, ever forget that he told me to refresh my email box, and in my email box was a plane ticket to Las Vegas. First of all, this was like Monday. The plane ticket was like on a Tuesday. I'm like, what are you talking about? There's absolutely no way that I can drop everything and go to Vegas with you tomorrow. At the time, I worked from home, and I'm like, I have a job. What are you talking about? He's like, I thought you worked from home. I'm like, well, I do work from home. And he's like, so take your computer. Like, Las Vegas has internet. I'm like, take my computer? Work from Las Vegas? What are you talking about? My parents, in one of their rock star parenting moments, I have really great parents, but it was hilarious because I called them like, okay, this guy I've gone on one date with has bought me a ticket to Vegas, and he wants me to get on the plane. And my parents are like, sounds great, what do you need? I'm like, oh my God, I expected you to talk me out of it. What rang true the most for this story and this topic was, I'm giving Paul all of these excuses for why there's no way I can go to Vegas with him. And he says to me, will you just get on the plane? And I'm like, just get on an airplane on a Tuesday to fly across the country and work from a hotel room for 4 days because on a second date with you? Like, are you crazy? And he's like, trying to talk me into it, basically all the way to Vegas. And he could probably paint the picture of how he was like, I don't remember where he was, but his phone was dying. He didn't have that much battery life left to continue arguing with me about how possible it was for me to do this. And he borrowed a charger from a bartender after telling her the story about how he was trying to get me to come with him on this vacation. So anyway, long story short, I got on the plane. And the whole time I'm just like, this is crazy. This is insane. What am I doing? Packed up my laptop. I had a fun time with TSA because we'd only gone on one date and he misspelled my name on the ticket. So I was trying to make sure they knew it was really for me. It was an adventure. So we get to Vegas. I'd never been there before, which was part of my nervousness. And I'm like a kid who's never been in a candy store before. Like, just face plastered to the cab window, like. And the whole time, like, leading up to me getting there, I'm like, what's the itinerary? Where are we gonna go? What are we gonna do? How are we gonna, what's the transportation situation? Did you rent a car? And he's like, don't worry about any of that. Just get on the plane. So I get there, I'm kidding the candy store, plastered to the window, so excited. We go, we drop off our stuff, we go out onto the strip, and I'm just, any of you who've been to Vegas, you can imagine. I mean, it's like lights and shiny and food and drinks and parties and music and people and street performers and all the things. And one of the first things that catches my eye is at the top of, I think it's New York, is a roller coaster. And we're like walking down the street and I see the roller coaster and I'm like, is that a roller coaster? And he goes, yeah. And I'm like, can people ride it? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, can we ride it? And he's like, yes. And I'm like, sweet. And I go back to just taking in all the things. And I notice that he's changed directions. And I'm walking along beside him and I'm like, where are we going now? And he's like, to ride the roller coaster. And I'm like, we're going to ride the roller coaster now? We weren't talking in generalities or eventualities or yeah, at some point we'll make it over there and ride the roller coaster. And sure enough, we march in there, we ride the roller coaster. And I'm like, holy crap. I just walked around a city where there was a roller coaster on the top of a building and just walked over there and of course we rode the front car because I just got on a plane on a Tuesday and flew across the country and walked into a building and started riding a roller coaster. Might as well get in the front car. But it was one of those moments that changed the way that I thought about life. Because I never thought on a Tuesday I could get on a plane and fly across the country and go on an adventure. And I had to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning because that was 8 o'clock in the morning Ohio time. And I had to work until 2 p.m. Vegas time because that's 5 p.m. Ohio time. And then I would take a nap and then we would go adventuring. And then I would take a nap and I would get up at 5 a.m. and log into my computer, and it was all completely insane and also the best. And Paul and I talk about all the time about how, we both felt like the craziest people to really fall in love on our second date. But that week we realized, we are very different people. Like anytime you were to meet my husband and I, we're very different people. But we really shared that sense of adventure that week. And obviously, the rest is history. Our whole lives changed. It was like, 6 months later, he quit his job and moved to Ohio. 2 months after that, we got engaged. A year and a half after that, we got married. So, and then we lived happily ever after. But even if we hadn't, honestly, that week would have changed my life because it was hands down the craziest thing I ever did in a split second. And I realized how amazing it could be. I think we came back on like a Friday or Saturday, and I'm like, the rest of my life I spend just working and going home and working and going home Monday through Friday. And what I just did was freaking go to Vegas. Like, work all day and then go to Vegas in the evenings. Like, and that kind of thing is more possible than we realize. So anyway, the point of that is there's something to embracing the moment. There's something to not having all the answers, not knowing what the transportation situation is going to be, what the itinerary is going to be, not having everything planned out, and just taking action. It was a thrill, and it's one of our favorite stories ever. And to this day, we do crazy things on Tuesdays and joke about how, well, of course we're, I don't know, doing jumping jacks in the street. That's what Tuesdays are for. Like, we just kind of joke about that. Like, you know, Tuesday is like the most boring day of the week. And yet, it was the day we decided to go to Vegas. Totally nuts. Okay. So I kind of want you to think through that. I want you to think of, I think everybody has those pivotal moments in your life. I think everybody has those moments where you said yes to something, or you said no to something, or you took a crazy chance that you didn't mean to take, or you walked out of a job in a split-second decision. I think everybody has those moments, and I'm curious what they are. I want you to think about them, but I also, if you're comfortable, I would love if you share them in the comments, so we could all kind of see all of these moments that make our life worthwhile. I'm sure everybody has that a moment where somebody asked you to do something and you were like, I don't know, sure, let's go for it. And it changed the trajectory. So I think most people don't take action because of fear. There was a million things that that I was afraid of. Mostly the complete lack of logistical planning had me very nervous. How on earth do you go on vacation and you don't have all the transportation and itinerary nailed down? But he's been a good influence on me in that regard. But I think most people don't take action because of fear. I mean, I think if you think about pivotal moments in your life, you can also think of times where maybe you think of if you'd said yes instead of no. Maybe you said no out of fear, and things could have been very different if you would have said yes. Or you said yes out of fear, and things would have been very different if you'd have said no. And looking back, you realize how your life would have changed. I can think of a million of those moments as I think back through life. Things that seemed really minor in that moment, and you didn't realize at the time were setting you up for something beyond what you imagined. The way that I navigate fear, the way that I try to stay in action oriented. So I really try to stay in a mode where if I want to do something, I do it. Because over the years, I realized that, you gotta carpe the diem. But there's 3 things that have helped me choose action over fear in my life. So one of those is realizing that you can't steer a parked car. I've always been someone who had lofty goals. I'm getting my containers mixed up. I've always been somebody who had a place they wanted to go. And you can't get there without moving. So even if you feel like this might not be exactly the right thing, you gotta keep going, because you can't steer a parked car or you go nowhere. So you gotta Put the car in drive. This has been true for my business. I mean, especially as I was telling you guys about the workshop that we're doing. It's like, well, shoot, all of the tickets sold out in 5 seconds. What do we do now? And the question on the table was, can you teach a bit bigger class? And I said, yes. I actually said, let's go for it. Because I don't have any evidence to support that I can teach a bigger class because I've never taught a bigger class before. But I have confidence in my ability to figure it out. And going back to week 1, I think we talked about it in week 1, that there's only 2 options. You either win or you learn. Either win or you learn. There's very few things in life that you cannot recover from. There's very few consequences that you can't bounce back from. So between realizing that you have to keep moving in order to keep, you gotta keep moving in order to keep moving, and the worst thing that could happen is that you learn. I mean, I think that's empowering. I think it's empowering to know that the worst thing that can happen is that you get some life lessons. And whatever you do next, whatever your next decision is, will only be better because of what you learned from this one. Yep, life is an adventure. It is. That's all there is to it. The other thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about, Elizabeth Gilbert and how she talks about fear. Because anytime that I get really freaked out, I think about the way that Elizabeth Gilbert has talked about fear before. If I remember correctly, I read a lot of Elizabeth Gilbert books. She was the one who wrote Eat, Pray, Love. I believe the book that she talked about this one in is called Big Magic. So especially you creative types, which I have a hypothesis is more people than they realize. I think more people are creative than they realize. And if you read the book Big Magic, it helps unearth some of those things. But she talks about how fear is a very useful tool. Fear has kept us alive for generation after generation. Fear is what keeps us from being eaten by bears. Fear is what keeps us from being poisoned. Like, fear is very useful to have. So what we shouldn't do, I'm actually gonna just turn this a little. What we should not do is try to avoid fear. We actually need to just invite fear along for the ride because it protects us. Fear keeps us safe. But where fear isn't allowed to come on our adventure is in the front seat. Fear has to ride in the back. So it can come, it can help keep us safe. It can be that annoying road trip buddy that constantly has a better way, a better route for us to travel. While we stick to our guns and travel the route that we've decided to travel. So that's fear. That needs to be the role of fear in our life. It's allowed to come along, but love is the thing that rides in the front seat. So that's the thing. Love is what drives our actions. Love is who we allow to speak advice to us. Fear is there to keep us safe, but we don't take orders from fear. So you can only win or learn. Hardly anything is not unrecoverable, and you have to steer a car that is moving. You cannot steer a parked car. So invite fear along for the ride, and then take action. Because even something that is 5 minutes a day, I mean, how many moments do you have in your life? Thinking even on a smaller scale, how many moments do you have in your life where somebody called and just checked on you? Or someone just told you they loved you when they gave you a hug, and that moment stuck with you forever. And it's in all those moments that change your life. Whether that is attracting more love into your life, whether that is making sure that someone knows how important they are to you, whether that is the difference between regretting something or not regretting something. It's important to take action in big and small ways. I'm gonna check and make sure I cover everything I wanted to. Okay, that's it, guys. I've gotten a coat of paint on this puppy. It looks white, but you can kind of see at the bottom. You can see that it's actually pink. I'm gonna paint this crib pink. You see it at first coat, it almost covers up that mushroom design. Paint this puppy pink, and we're gonna put on a wildflower transfer. Probably gonna do that next week. But in the meantime, I want you guys to take action. Whether it's something that you've been procrastinating on because you've given yourself a million reasons why you can't do something, or whether it's something small, like, man, I wish that, or I've always wanted to tell that person how much they meant to me. Do it. Do it. Take action. Do the thing. Don't be scared, or be scared and do it anyway. And then tell me about it. I want to hear about it. I want to hear how you're taking action. The leap that I took most recently is in signing up to add these beauties to my inventory. I had 3 product lines already: paint brushes, and stencils. And I felt like this was my first year. I need to keep this small. I need to keep this manageable. And then I went to that paint class, and they were like, sister, each one of these companies allows people a territory. If your territory is open, grab it. If you want the best business that you can run, you need all of the pieces of the puzzle. Like, that crib is not gonna be as pretty unless you put some wildflowers on that beauty. You guys wait, this stuff is so great. And I love the stuff, love it. But I was trying to stay small. And when you're launching a business, there's a lot of things to be scared of. And my mentors that I met there were like, go, do it. What's the worst that can happen? We bury ourselves in excuses when we could be doing and accomplishing and moving forward. So, I love you guys. Thank you so much. If you're interested in any of the things that you saw today, please go to carrilouFurnishings.com. I will also be at the Village Cup this Saturday from 11 to 1, doing this IRL, in real life. And would love to see you in person and meet you in person. And I'm also gonna be doing monthly workshops every 3rd Saturday. So every first Saturday free, every 3rd Saturday workshop where you can come and have a handy dandy lovely little thing to take home with you, and a whole bunch of fun in between. So if nothing else, I will see you on here next Thursday. Make sure you've hit the turn on live notifications so that you see when I'm on there, and I will talk to you next week. Love you guys. Thank you so much. Yes, husband of mine. That's Carrie Lou Furnishings I'm talking about at carrilouFurnishings.com. Okay, this is a mold.